So picture this. We kick things off on a building absolutely drowning in crows. And right in front sits a luxury church car. From inside, you hear a little girl's voice asking if she did something wrong. She's tied up in ropes, screaming about why they're doing this to her. And there are holy crosses laid out all around, and she's just whimpering what she even did. Right in front of her stand Father Kong and his assistant. And Kong immediately grills the rookie about feeling pity just because she's a student. He reminds him the school is a total disaster zone because of that one girl, so he better stuff his sympathy. And the kicker, she's hanging upside down, bound to the roof like a goddamn piñata. Kong then asks if the guy is just straight up terrified instead. Behind them lie the dead bodies of other students, just casually decorating the scene. The assistant barks out that no, he isn't afraid, it's just his first mission, making him a little nervous. Kong mutters, and is that so? Before he trembles and admits that while he himself is absolutely terrified. The assistant shouts a confused what. But Kong just pops his cigar between his teeth and declares that, damn it, he might actually die today. The assistant's eyes bug out while he thinks. How can the great father say something like that, and wonders if this request is really that goddamn dangerous? Father Kong yanks up his sleeve and grumbles that good grief, if it was this dangerous, they should have told him beforehand. He asks if they should start and steps forward. And the assistant flips pages in his book, shouting that yes, he'll provide full support and to leave the rear to him. Kong instantly hands over his phone, telling him he doesn't need backup from a fledgling and to just hold this precious thing without breaking it. The assistant stares at the phone, totally confused, thinking it's just a cell phone. Kong then announces he'll apologize to the student in advance. And with a maniacal grin, he joins his hands, and a terrifying amount of spiritual energy floods in. He roars that this might sting a little, and a colossal ball of power starts gathering between his palms while the assistant struggles to stay upright. The assistant's brain short-circuits at the sight, realizing that with this much power, Kong could exorcise the girl without even a ritual. Up front, tied and dangling, the little girl shrieks that it hurts, and the assistant internally praises the priest of absolute power. Father Kong casually shapes that spiritual fury into a sphere, and the assistant knows the rumors about Father Yon Kong were got him true. Then Kong bellows in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit and begins to pray. And from behind, the assistant covers himself and recites the Our Father. From inside the girl, the demon screams, "Fuck! Told you to stop!" and starts thrashing, snapping the ropes while hollering that she'll kill every last one of these sons of Kong. Releases his energy at the demon with a shout to return to the Forsaken Lands. And the foul spirit wails no and shields her face. But when the blinding glow fades and she peeks, absolutely nothing happened. Kang's spiritual power just droops like it had goddamn erectile dysfunction, and the assistant stares in pure shock. Kong yells that, damn it, he really has gotten old and guesses he's been overworking himself lately. He hollers at the rookie not to dare tell anyone, because how embarrassing. The assistant shrieks back, asking if that's really what matters right now. Kong blows out cigar smoke and insists that of course nothing in life is more important than saving face, and his performance reviews have been slipping anyway. Mid-sentence, a hand flat out smashes his face. Blood sprays from his mouth, and he goes flying. The attacking individual is the demon girl who tore through all those ropes. Now the demon inside sneers that she was scared for nothing. All that posturing, and he's nothing special. She strikes a goddamn sexy pose and drags him, asking if that's all he's got, and calling him pathetic for a great exorcist. Kong clenches his cigar between his teeth and thinks that hurt like hell, and if only he were 5 years younger. The demon grabs his neck and tightens it, purring that he had her worried, "You old geyser." While Kong chokes and struggles to breathe, the assistant shouts a command in the name of the saint and flips pages, attacking the demon and ordering it to return to the Forsaken Lands. She just turns with violent eyes and stares in silence while Kong rasps that it's no use and tells the kid to run the hell away. Then she opens her mouth impossibly wide and blasts the assistant with a bolt of spiritual power that sends him crashing back and drops Kang's phone. The demon calmly says he's next, so he shouldn't hurry and just stay down while she devours the old man's spiritual power first. Kong finally speaks and mutters he really didn't want to resort to this method, but now he has no choice. The demon shrieks to stop bluffing, calling him a dying old man, but Kong says they'll see if it's a bluff soon enough. The assistant frantically wonders if Father Kong is going to self-destruct, and the demon growls, "Don't even try." Kong laughs and then starts bawling, literally screaming for help while tears run down his face. The demon had braced for a brutal explosion, but this shock hits her harder and dead silence fills the room. Kong just keeps waving his arms and crying for help, and the demon screams, asking if he's gone mad, and tells him to shut the hell up. The assistant clutches his chest, thinking his superior's mind has completely snapped. But then he notices Kang's phone has activated and something is connecting and a voice comes through saying they are now linked. Someone says, "Hello, can Father Kong hear him?" And the assistant thinks, "Who the is that?" Outside, Hyan remarks that Kong sure took his sweet time calling, but since he reached out, he assumes Kong has agreed to the price he proposed. A girl stands beside him, and Han adds he'd been waiting nearby because he was certain Kong would call eventually. He moves forward and wonders aloud if Father Kong appreciates their thoughtfulness. The demon fires energy from her eyes, screaming that the little punk called for another priest, and slams Park to the ground while holding his neck. Park protests that he didn't do anything, but the demon insists it's useless. Even if another one shows up, nothing will change. She raises her clawed hands to kill Father Kong, while the assistant sobs no. But Kong, right at the moment of impact, isn't even slightly worried and just puffs a cigar, telling the demon she's absolutely right and to hurry up and get out. Exactly. Then, the glass window explodes, and Han flies in, casually, asking if Kong is sure he's okay with this. And he stops the demon with his bare, freaking hands. He chats with Park like he's at a goddamn coffee shop, looking exhausted and asking if it's fine to do this in front of the rookie assistant. Park sputters and asks if now's the time to worry about that, telling Han he has no conscience when it comes to money, but is being way too considerate. So just finish this fast. The assistant's mind races, wondering who that guy is and where he even came from. The demon transforms the girl's face into its true form. Huge, jagged teeth jutting out, and shrieks that these bastards dare talk about exercising her right at her face. She lunges straight at Han, roaring that she'll kill them all. Hyan then calmly asks her if she knew evil spirits can feel pain, too. And he shouts while delivering a bare, knuckled punch straight to her face. The assistant freezes, thinking, what the hell is going on? And Han flashes a grin and calls it a holy punch. Han tells her it hurts, doesn't it? And if she doesn't want more, she should get the hell out of there. The assistant panics, convinced he has to stop that man because he's going to kill the possessed girl too. But Father Kong instantly holds him back. Kong tells him everyone thinks like that the first time, and when the assistant protests, Kong just puts his cigar back in his mouth and says to relax and watch. Right then, the girl starts coughing, and soon she drops to her knees and straight up vomits out the evil spirit. That tiny evil spirit squeals. What the hell is this guy? He forced her out without even a ritual, and it hurts like a Han catches the spirit and asks how it's painful, and the spirit wails that it hurts and begs for mercy, calling him a monster. Hyan offers that if she passes on voluntarily, he'll let her go without more pain. The spirit instantly agrees and promises to pass on. Hyan releases it with an "oh really," telling her to go on and pass on, but the spirit smiles wildly and bolts away, shouting like hell she will, "You idiot." She vows to just find another body because the world is full of weak humans. And Hyan lunges to the window, yelling to catch it. Outside, Hani has already joined her hands and uses her spiritual power to summon a bow and arrow. She aims straight at the evil spirit and releases the arrow ripping through the atmosphere so fast it literally disrupts everything and pierces the spirit's body. The spirit is left speechless, shrieking, "What is that woman?" before her body blasts apart and vanishes like a dazzling star. Han says, "Nice one, Hani," and she tells him to stop being such a nuisance. He lands back on the floor, and the assistant asks Park on Earth just happened, while Park swaggers him like a gangster and says, it certainly wasn't a normal exorcism. Park tells his assistant, "Good job on the first mission," acknowledging he's conflicted, but he'll have to get used to it. He explains that spirits exploit the cracks in human emotions, feeding on resentment and fear, which is why they cling to children so easily. The younger they are, the more vulnerable, and spirits possessing pure souls gain even more wicked power. So, most exorcists avoid dealing with minors entirely. At least, today ended without anyone being seriously hurt, and the person whose body was inhabited by a demon is safe. The girl is actually okay. Park keeps going, pointing out that the wounds from those punches are already healing. He tells his assistant it's incredible that Hyong guy can exercise and heal with his bare fist. The assistant just mutters that he doesn't understand, and they sip sodas while Park laughs and says, right, exercising with fists instead of rituals or spiritual power. But what does it matter? The case is closed, but the assistant fires back that he cannot understand Father Kang's actions, trusting the exorcism of a minor to someone who isn't even a priest. Kong stays silent, and the assistant stresses that if the Vatican ever finds out about today, they're both finished. He clenches his head, then looks at Han and Hani and asks who exactly they are. Park thoughtfully answers that the name was something like Healing Agency. Meanwhile, somewhere else inside a door of a monastery sealed with talismans and ropes, the entire frame begins to crack. The wooden door explodes like a bomb and a girl comes flying out. A group standing outside wasn't ready for the impact, and one of them asks Shem if she's all right. She replies no, saying the thing is dangerous, and in front of them stands a deadly evil spirit. The spirit announces that if it can just take the body of a strong young man, they can all live. Then Han Ji comes tearing in on her motorcycle and shouts for Hyan. He asks why the motorcycle so early, and she tells him to get on because they have an exorcism request. She glances at her phone and says it's a bit far. They'll probably be late for school, but they're going, and is he coming or what? Han puts on his helmet and asks with total confidence how much this one is worth. So Han and Hani Hall ask to the location, and the second they arrive, Han sizes up the situation and declares the guy is too dangerous and he should charge at least a couple hundred. The injured shaman immediately screams at him, asking if he's kidding because this is way more expensive than before and someone's life is on the line. So who the hell cares about money right now? Han just parks his ass on top of a pig head and tells everyone to calm down. The shaman shrieks that he's the last person who should be saying that, calling him a money grubber to his face. Hyan turns to her completely unfazed, munching on an apple, and asks her what she's going to do about it. The man who booked the healing agency cuts in and says he'll pay the money, but Han has to safely expel that evil spirit from his father. His sister storms and screaming, asking her Oppa if he's crazy and how he could trust a kid like Han. Han snaps his fingers and smirks that at least someone is talking sense. The boy explains they have no choice because he can't lose his only father to an evil spirit. While his sister clenches her teeth, he adds that even a great shaman like Yane said she couldn't do anything, so they had to try something. Hyan instantly slides up beside him, slaps a hand on the boy's shoulder, and tells him he understands how much he wants to save his family and to leave it to him now. He boasts that they always keep their promises to clients because that's the iron rule of the healing agency. From beside him, Hani mutters, "Iron rule my ass," and says he's just obsessed with money. Han yanks up the rope tied with talismans and says nothing. Han Ji yells from behind to hurry up and finish this because they'll be late for school. And Han just says, "Got it." Inside, the evil spirit is eating a pig's heart and muttering about wanting a man. Hans throws a scene, and when the evil spirit spots him, it completely freaks out, screaming about wanting that young man's body. It rushes Hyan, but he still has the rope in his hand and delivers a holy punch straight to its face, breaking its teeth and sending it flying again. The employer screams for his father. The shaman just smiles, and the employer's sister stands there trembling. That person hollers asking if Han is crazy and what he did to their father. Hani says just as she thought, and Han sweats a little, explaining that everyone misunderstood because this is also a method of exorcism. He pats the old man and says there's no evil spirit left inside him, and he looks young again. Right then, the old man vomits out the evil spirit, and the employer sobs for his father to live and see his grandchildren. The sister is brutally angry, but then the crowd notices something unusual, and the shaman points out he forced out an evil spirit with a single punch without any ritual. Same reactions, as always, follow, and they ask if he can do exorcisms like this, too. The employer's sister snaps, asking how anyone can trust someone like him with a job like this, and what they're supposed to do now with their father. Hani sits on her bike and tells Hyan they're running out of time, so he better get on or she's leaving him. Hyan yelps to wait for him and runs toward Hani, shouting to Yane that he's leaving the cleanup to her. Yane screams, "What?" asking what he expects her to do. And Han replies that she can do it because she's the most beautiful shaman he has ever seen. Yane instantly gets flustered and nervous and just stands there silently. The employer bursts out, demanding to know where Hyan thinks he's going and to give them back their father. His sister screams at Hyan to get back and stop running away after making all this mess. The whole team of shamans tries to stop them, begging everyone to calm down. Then from behind them, the voice of Shaman Yane cuts through and she shouts, asking where their faith is. She clashes her daggers in midair and reminds them they've begged her just to keep their father alive, even if he had to be bedridden. And now they're acting shameless. Everyone shuts up and she yells, asking why they're worrying because their father isn't dying and is regaining his strength much faster. They look at their father who is healing and smiling and sleeping peacefully on the ground. The employer asks if his father is actually smiling. Yane declares that in her ritual, she doesn't let anyone die, which is why they came looking for her, the most beautiful shaman in this country. She uses the great bewitchment technique and kills the evil spirit instantly with her dagger. Everyone scrambles to avoid her so-called reflection, and they murmur that there it is, the great bewitchment spell that Yane can only use when her confidence is sky high. Others cover their eyes because it's so bright, an exorcism spell that can even bewitch evil spirits. Finally on the bike, Hyan suggests they escape while they can. Hani exhales and raises the bike, and Hyan asks casually if they're getting paid. Back with Shaman Yang, she has embedded her long dagger into the evil spirit, but then notices something unusual. She looks closely at it, and a terrified expression spreads across her face. She only manages to say, "This is before everything cuts off." Meanwhile, Hyen and Han Ji have arrived at school, and while everyone else rides bicycles, they're on a superbike. Inside a library room, Honey gets approached by two friends asking where she's been and what she's doing. She tells them she's looking for the forbidden book. They ask what forbidden book, and she explains it's the one containing the mysteries and truth of evil spirits, and she thought there must be at least one hidden in this library. Both schoolgirls get surprised, and one says they heard she gives people the chills. Another asks if she isn't sick of evil spirits. She hops down from a ladder and says no, she isn't, then asks why they were looking for her. They reply by asking if she might be dating Han. Hani blushes hard and screams what's so loudly. The whole school rumbles like an earthquake, and even a cat outside freaks out. This catches Hyen's scream from somewhere else, and he laughs ridiculously while denying he would ever date Hani. The others stare at him and say, but he likes her, and he snaps back that too bad because he liked her first. They point out he rides that motorcycle to and from school with her every day, and it would be weird if there weren't any sparks. Han whips out his phone and threatens that if they keep this up, he's raising the subscription fee for evil spirit photos and won't show them anymore. He asks if they don't want to see evil spirits pooping. The three of them start crying out and grabbing Hyen's shoulders while the rest of the class just stares at the nuisance they're performing. They sob apologies and beg him to show them because they've already paid for this week's subscription. Back in the library, the two girls are relieved, saying it's not like that, and they really thought she was dating Han. She says they're not dating, then joins her hands and admits she's kind of interested in him and Han, and gets completely flustered. Every single book Hani picks up drops right from her hands the moment she becomes a statue. Later, the door of Han's class opens, and Han Ji storms in. One of the three nuisance creators tells her Hyen already went home, said he had an emergency, and left early, and ran like crazy. The girl adds that maybe he had to meet his girlfriend. And the other girl who is interested in Han looks confused and asks girlfriend, while Hani stands there speechless. Now away from school, Hyen is on his phone telling someone they must have been so scared, but she'll be fine because she fell asleep after taking her medication. He explains it was just a mild seizure, and the doctor said they'd monitor her a bit longer, but they still don't know what's causing her illness. The person on the phone points out that his medicine and hospital bills are really overdue. Hyen insists he can still pay them, but he's sweating and admits this month has been tough with not many requests. Somewhere else, the healing agency's youngest member, Lily, is sleeping, and Hyen gets told they expected as much, so the boss covered everything for this month, but is only giving him a grace period until today. The boss tells him to cut the nonsense and just work hard and pay him back, calling him a grown man acting all shiny. Han instantly mutes the mic and gets quiet. Little Lily wakes up and calls him OA, and Han asks if she's awake. She just stares at him and asks why he looks so exhausted and if he's all right. She smiles and says yes after taking her medicine and sleeping. She feels fine and she's sorry for making him worry. Hyen closes the gap and says he's glad, then asks if she's hungry and if there's anything she wants to eat, telling her to just say the word and he'll buy it. She instantly sits up on her bench with sparkling eyes and asks if she can really have anything she wants to eat. Han says of course, but she has to finish it. She cheers that he's the best oppa and Han is the best. Back at the school, Yang comes riding in on her scooter and shouts for Hani. Hani is surprised. Yang asks where Han is, and Hani explains he had an urgent matter and went to the hospital, then asks why she came all the way here. Yang steadily rushes to the storage space and reveals that the evil spirit attached to the old man earlier wasn't the end of it. Han Ji asks what she means and if there's something else. Yang takes out an animal head and says that when she purified the spirit, this thing appeared. Something she's only ever heard about, and this is the first time she's seen one. The two girls behind Hani completely freak out. Hani stays surprised while he lifts the animal head covered in talismans and says she's certain this was deliberately planted by them. Through some kind of telecommunication, Hyen hears Hani's voice saying they have to meet the employer quickly because that madman might be targeting him for expelling their evil spirit. Han asks what's happening while his little sister Lily eats the pizza and donut she just asked for. Outside in the hospital corridor, pure chaos erupts as everyone runs around screaming that a person is holding a knife and is possessed by an evil spirit and has lost his mind, and someone yells to call the Vatican. A woman steps up in high heels and says she finally found him. She has a knife in her hand, opens the door, and stands right in front of Han. She says they meet again and smiles, thanking him for saving her father that morning and telling him she's come to repay him. Han asks if she's the daughter of the old man from the exorcism earlier, shouting that if it's about money, she could have given it to Yang, and asking when she came looking for him and why. She says she doesn't have a single penny to give him, then lifts her t-shirt to reveal strange patterns carved on her body. She explains she already spent all her money to buy that evil spirit, and even then it still wasn't enough, so she pawned her own body as collateral. Han closely observes her and thinks she bought an evil spirit and questions what the hell she's talking about. The girl continues that she used that evil spirit to kill her father, and after that it was her foolish brother's turn. She says if everything had gone according to plan, their entire inheritance could have been hers, and she could have paid her debts and removed the curse and lived comfortably without ever worrying about money again. She instantly raises the knife, screaming that if only he hadn't interfered. She stabs the dagger in her own belly and calls his name. She asks if he's never thought that interfering in other people's lives could make a demon do terrible things to him. She smiles as the demon starts pouring out from her own body toward Hyan. She shrieks that if he and that shaman Yane had just let her father die, she could have lived a much happier life. And this is all his fault because her life is shattered. From her body explodes an endless number of those creatures. Then a strange thing happens, and the demonic tentacles go straight for Han's sister, leaving him confused as he looks behind. Lily is trapped in the demon's tentacles and screams Appa. Han runs toward her, shouting her name, but gets bound by some of the tentacles too. He crushes one in his hand, but from behind, the woman speaks up, saying this is all because of him, her ruined life, and his sister's death. Lily is about to be thrown out the broken window by the demon. While Han reaches for her, she cries out Oppa, and Han's eyes widen in pure tension. Before anyone can process anything, he uses his power and jumps right behind Lily, breaking away all those filthy tentacles and freeing her. He catches her just in time, and the woman inside smiles and smirks. Hyan grabs the demon's tentacles and screams, "You bastard!" He falls while holding it and crashes straight onto a car, crushing it completely, and lies there coughing and injured. A voice comes from above, calling him a hypocrite, and the woman somehow manages to taunt that he saved his sister, but ruined other people's lives. She says, it doesn't matter, though, because both of them die here, and demon spirits still pour from her body. Her eyes glow as she takes Han's name and tells him he ruined her life, so now he must pay the price. Trembling, Hyan manages to sit up and calls it nonsense, telling her not to blame others. He says she destroyed her own life because she was blinded by money. He jumps up and shouts that she tried to kill her precious family for money and even sold her body and soul to a cheap evil spirit. So who exactly is she blaming? She screams at him not to talk as if he knows everything, that she was always cast aside and they never considered her family to begin with, and they are trash who deserve to die. From her body, more evil spirit tentacles attack toward Han. He instantly grabs one and shouts, asking if she thinks that's a good enough reason to kill her family. He yanks the tentacle straight toward himself, dragging the girl along, and announces he'll make sure to charge her a proper exorcism fee for her family. He prepares a punch and lands it straight on her, and she goes flying through the air and crashes to the floor. Meanwhile, Hani and Yin are rushing toward Hyan on Hani's bike. Hani tells Yang not to worry too much because evil spirits are always blasted away with one punch from Han. Yin replies that she knows, but this isn't the usual evil spirit they're dealing with because it's directly connected to them and can continuously summon more demons. Han Ji asks what she keeps meaning by them and who exactly they are. Yin explains they are humans like demons deceiving people and selling evil spirits to them. And anyone possessed by an evil spirit under their control can summon evil spirits nonstop as if they're opening the gates of hell right now. From the body of the woman in front of Han, two more evil spirits pop straight out of her belly. She floats in the air and says, this is starting to get fun. Those two evil spirits are his brother and father only. And the evil spirit taunts that no matter how hard he struggles, it's meaningless because this place has already become hell. It creepily smiles while Hyan already injured just pants. Hyan says, so he finally got devoured by that evil spirit and admits he doesn't know how they make those evil spirits appear continuously. He adjusts his hair and lays it out first. The healing agency's exorcism fee is expensive, so she better be prepared. Somewhere else, a cop was dutifully scribbling down the scene in front of him, announcing it was a D-class, a demon-class evil spirit, like he was reading off a takeout menu. Kong was just planted on top of that D-class spirit, like it was a beanbag chair. And the two cops started cracking up, asking if you couldn't just chuck some salt at it and call it a day. Kong, getting seriously pissed, lit a cigarette and told them people were risking their lives while they shot the end to them. It was nothing. His assistant came sprinting in, screaming that it was an emergency, and Father Kong had to move his ass right now. Kong stared at him like the Vatican was working an old man to death without a single raise. And the assistant hollered that this wasn't the time for lazy complaints because in Abraeus' class, an A-class evil spirit had shown up at the university hospital. Kang's face started sweating hard, and that cigarette just fell out of his mouth as he asked what the hell was happening. Now over with Han, He stood there calm as a frozen lake in front of the woman, asking her exactly what she was. He saw the three of them who were completely infested by evil spirits from the inside, and he wanted to know how an evil spirit could even possess a human body. So Lily was still knocked out, and he basically said he didn't care what they were because as long as he exorcised them all, it didn't matter how they were summoning spirits. He made it crystal clear that the healing agency's exorcism fees were steep. And right after that, the three of them attacked him in a flash. The brother closed in and landed a hit straight on Hein's chest, and Han let out a shout full of agony and pure rage. He cursed, grabbed the brother's coat, and was about to punch his lights out when a tentacle demon instantly snagged his hand. Now, endless tentacles erupted from that woman's body, and they were all shooting straight for Lily. Han spun around thinking, no, Lily in a panic. But the brother didn't give him a split second and landed another attack that froze Hein right up. Han couldn't move, staring at his own shaking hands and body, all caught up by that tentacle freak. And he clenched his jaw so hard you could hear his teeth groaning. He screamed enough, threw a punch right into that evil spirit brother. And just as tentacles were about to grab Lily, she suddenly realized Han had somehow caught them all at once with both hands, and even one of his legs. He was bellowing to get away from his sister, and he stretched those tentacles so violently that they tore clean in half and collapsed right along with Han, who dropped to his knees against the car. The woman from behind then sneered that he was tired already and didn't live up to his big talk, but his unique exorcism method was still fun to watch. She went on that they were a bit weaker since they'd rushed making them. But those humans were hosts manually filled with evil spirits, and he was taking them down barehanded. Not a single damn ritual with the evil spirit literally vomiting out of the brother like last night's bad dinner. Then that woman thing told Han he was definitely not a normal human, and added as casually as you'd comment on the weather that even his own mother had thrown him away. Han's brain flashed back to protecting his baby sister Lily alone in that hole of a place. And in the present, he just lit up with fury. He launched himself right off the road and charged that woman, screaming that she was a who didn't know a thing about him. The evil spirit grinned like a mad woman, and a tentacle punched straight through Han's body, stomach to back. Out the other side, more tentacles started worming into his mouth as she leaned in close, and said that losing control and charging in just because she'd baited him a little proved he was just a kid. She waved him off as a decent little distraction while everything had been happening. And he just looked confused until an arrow came from right behind him and shredded whatever those tentacles were doing to him. Hani shouted at Hein to snap out of it, and he finally recognized her, blurting out Yane and Hani's names, telling them it was dangerous and to run. Hani shot right back, that he was the one dying there while Yang stood there completely baffled, then lunged forward, chopping up those demonic tentacles that were zooming straight at them. Yang yelled at them not to let their guard down, and the evil spirit demanded to know who she was to get lost and stay out of her way. Hani aimed a spiritual arrow and fired, obliterating a tentacle instantly, while he used her daggers to slice down two more, but those tentacles were endless, and one soon gashed Hani's arm. Hani cried out in pain. Han freaked out, and Yane asked if she was okay while still shredding those hellish limbs. Han Ji held her elbow and said she was fine. But more importantly, she pointed out to Yane how those evil spirits kept pouring out nonstop like a busted hydrant. She said she'd never seen an evil spirit with such vicious energy. And at that rate, they were all going to lose without some kind of plan. Hani watched Han still standing there stunned with a tentacle piercing him, and she shouted to Yane asking if she could clear a path to him. Yane, while fighting those tentacles, said sure and asked if she had a plan. And Hong Ji told her she thought it was the only way they had left. Endless tentacles rained down as the woman screamed at them to stop their damn blabbering. And Hani yelled for Yane to leave it to her while she pulled her daggers and prepared to charge. Yane whipped out a talisman and cried. Falling blossoms, flowing water, then hurled it right in front of her, and it instantly started torching those evil spirits. Han Ji was struggling to push toward Hyen, and her mind flashed back to school days when her friends asked if she liked Hyen, because she was always glued to him. In the present, she thought there was no way she liked him. While the evil woman shrieked that another stupid kid was throwing her life away, and she'd kill her right there too. All Han Ji could do was dodge and weave through those tentacles, and her thoughts dragged her back to a memory where Han was all grubby and sleeping on the floor with his sister. She'd come to him crying, and he'd asked if she was thrown away too. But she screamed that she was the one who abandoned her father, not some pitiful reject. She stood there with a dagger trembling in her hand, confessing her dad was possessed and that she was going to kill him herself since the host dying meant the evil spirit disappeared. Han had asked if she really wanted to kill him just because of an evil spirit, her own family. And she just broke down, head down, sobbing. She grabbed his collar, knelt, and shouted what she was supposed to do when even the priests ran away, saying they couldn't do a thing in a situation like that. Ken silently watched her, and then yelled that she had to do something, anything, and that throwing her family away because of an evil spirit made no damn sense, calling her an idiot. She punched him square in the face, screaming at him about how he could possibly know if it was just an evil spirit or not, telling him not to act like he understood and spout nonsense. She calmed down, still crying, and Han just looked at her and finally said he'd help. She asked, still sobbing, what someone like him could even do. And he instantly grabbed her hand with a dagger, holding his baby sister, Lily, in his other arm, and shouted right in her face that he could kill evil spirits. Hani stared into his eyes, completely bewildered, and he shouted, crying himself, to believe it or not, whatever. He added that they had been thrown away by their families and had nowhere to go, so he'd kill as many damn evil spirits as it took and save her dad, but she had to pay him too. And then he screamed at her to accept them as her family. Hani's crying just stopped for a moment, and with watery eyes, she looked straight at Hyan. In the present, running toward him, all she thought was that she was finally paying back her debt, and she shouted for Han to hang in there, knowing it was hard. Hyan was hoisted up in the air on a demonic tentacle, and Han Ji screamed that this was the only idea she had left. Han started to say her name and warning, but her mind flicked back to when her friends seriously thought she was dating him. Right now, as she rushed toward him, she thought there was no way she liked him, and then she straight up lunged for his neck and bit down hard. She was nervous as hell, Han shouted, and she replied, well, bit out that she loved him, while Yang watched and got all flustered, realizing that the method Hani mentioned was literally this. The energy that exploded out of Hyan destroyed every evil spirit around him, even the one skewering his body. The woman releasing those spirits screamed that he was a bastard, doing that while half dead, and Yang just muttered in disbelief that it couldn't be Han's spiritual power. She further thought there was no way Hani was biting Han's neck just to release his energy. Old memories surfaced again of Hyan catching an evil spirit and crushing it with his bare hands while asking Hani if it was really just an evil spirit, and her still crying while holding little Lily. All of them just kids back then. At present, Han shut his eyes, gathered his energy, and when he opened them, they blazed red. Hani shouted for him to finish it fast as she lay on the ground, but Han just calmly sat in a heroic pose and told her not to worry. He instantly jumped, hollering that she didn't want it dragging on, and neither did he, moving at insane speed with his hand stretched out. The woman in front thought, what the hell? All his wounds were completely healed, and she shrieked that whatever trick he was pulling was useless. She unleashed more demonic tentacles into her brother and father's possessed bodies and sent the rest straight for Hyan, screaming that this place was already a living hell. Hyan readied his punch and said she just kept using humans as bait until the very end. Then he punched the brother and the father, simultaneously forcing the evil spirits to vomit right out of them as they both flew through the air. The woman was shocked and confused all at once, and Han roared that this world wasn't hell. He gathered energy in his fist again, right above her, and shouted that hell was inside your own heart. He warned it was going to hurt a lot, then planted a punch straight in her face, declaring that for someone with a broken heart, it would be unbearable. She smashed into the ground, tentacles still poking out of her body as she lay there coughing. And the evil spirit came shrieking out of her from the sheer pain of Han's hit. The injury gap on her stomach from where the monster sprouted just closed up, and those tentacles vanished. Then the lady started to vomit, and Yang, Hyan, and Han Ji all stared in surprise as she puked out what looked like a chicken head. They gaped at it, blurting out that it was a freaking chicken head they'd used to implant evil spirits and control people, and the damn thing wasn't even dead. It looked right at Han and told him honestly it was surprised, having no idea he was hiding that kind of power inside, confirming he was definitely not a normal human. It added that either way they would make him pay for getting in their way. And then it squawked that they would kill him and everyone around him, especially his girlfriend, screaming that she'd go straight to hell and he'd better look forward to it. Han crushed the chicken's head without a second of hesitation under his foot and said calmly that if it had something to say, it should say it to his face instead of hiding behind a disgusting chicken head. And for the record, he pointed at Hani and declared she was not his girlfriend. Yang, Han, and Hani all stood there thoroughly embarrassed at the same exact moment. Finally, the girl they just saved regained consciousness, coughing and asking where she was, remembering coming to the hospital, then staring in front of her and freaking out over that chicken head. Yang flat out called her an idiot and explained it was an evil spirit that stole her consciousness and controlled her body. Their goal probably being to wipe out her whole family and snatch all her assets. Just then, from beside Hyan's team, the lady's brother and father appeared, and she cried out their names. She joined her hands and sobbed that she was wrong and sorry that greed had blinded her. The father and brother both hugged her instantly, and the brother cried out that he was sorry, sis, that he should have taken better care of her. Eugen started crying too, and the father shouted through tears that they were fools, that they hadn't done anything wrong, and it was his fault as a father for letting their hearts wander, sobbing that he was sorry. Oge-yen. She hugged them back, crying and screaming that she was sorry. Sorry to both dad and brother. While Yane, watching the whole soggy mess, said sorry to ruin the mood, but asked where the place was where they'd made their pact with the evil spirits. Somewhere else, a kid was playing baseball, and after crushing the ball, he took off for a home run. Everyone shouted his name, Hook again, asking how many solo home runs he'd hit so far, because he was just incredible. Someone praised him and seriously asked if he wanted to join the baseball team, while another kid said, yeah, they should keep playing baseball together, who apologized and said his mom wouldn't let him. And the other said, really? That was a shame, but suggested they just keep playing together from now on. Then Hyuk's phone rang, and instantly he bolted for the exit, shouting he was sorry, but he had to go now, and they should play again next time. They were all confused, whining that it was no fun if he left, but he just apologized again and got out of there. Finally, Hyuk reached his house and called out that he was home. He came inside, and his mother asked where he'd been, and he said he just went out for a bit to see his friends. She shot back, asking if he was playing baseball again, and screamed that she told him, who was crushed as his mother started crying. And with a baseball bat in her hands, she shrieked how many times she had to tell him not to. He raised his hands in front of him, begging that he was sorry he wouldn't do it again. He was serious. He swore he'd never play baseball anymore. His mother just looked at him, cold and broken, and asked why he never listened, if he really wanted to end up like his father. Then she smashed the bat straight into a showpiece that shattered on the floor. Back in his room, who was huddled in a corner, and beside him, a kid stared from a mirror. While in front of him stood his father, he sobbed that he was sorry he wouldn't do it again. Please forgive him over and over. His father's hands lifted his face, and through his tears, he kept saying he was so sorry until he looked close and just managed to croak out, Dad. So, back at school, the hallways were absolutely buzzing with the kind of low-rent gossip that makes you lose brain cells just by walking past it. Everyone kept asking each other if they'd heard about the possessed guy who went completely feral at the nearby hospital the night before. And someone else immediately fired back that it happened again. And apparently, this sort of had gone down at another school just a few days ago. One kid started freaking out that evil spirits were popping up way more often lately, and his friend agreed wholeheartedly, saying he should probably start carrying a lucky charm or something before it was too late. Then some loudmouth shut all of that down and told everyone to forget about it because they had to look at something way more important, which turned out to be a photo of that priest from the hospital. A girl whipped out the picture of Kang's assistant and announced to her friend that he was stunning, a total smoke show, who could protect her, and if the man wasn't a priest, she would be all over him so fast it would make your head spin. Her friend basically told her dream on and asked if she seriously thought a guy that hot would ever be interested in her, which made the first girl screech about what that was supposed to mean and insist that for someone like her, he totally could be. Meanwhile, Han was leaning against the wall, absolutely destroying a chocolate ice cream while watching the circus and muttering that these priests kept popping out of nowhere and stealing his credit. Hani was conned right in front of him, scrolling through her phone, and replied that none of it mattered because they'd scored a massive payout for the job. So everything was fine as long as the cash was fat. She thumbed through her screen and added that they'd cleaned the entire mess without anyone noticing. And thanks to Father Kong, the whole corpse cluster got dealt with immediately. So for them, it actually worked out perfectly. Han leaned over and told Hani that a money grubber like her would never understand. And Hani snapped back with pure venom that no, he was the one who didn't get it. Han shot back a sarcastic little, huh? Look who's talking. Then glanced sideways where that girl was still obsessing over whether she should slide into the priest's assistant's DMs, while other people egged her on about not having sent it yet. He got this hilariously confused look and then started complaining out loud that he was in the damn photo too. And he wanted to know why absolutely nobody was talking about him, because honestly, he thought he looked pretty good right there in the shot. Hani fixed him with eyes that could strip paint and told him to cut the crap because he had already gotten enough money for Hook's medication. So he should just shut his mouth and be grateful. That's when Hani's friend swooped in and the yellow-haired one grinned and asked point blank if the two of them had kissed. And I swear the entire atmosphere curdled in half a second. Both Han Ji and Han's brains short-circuited straight back to that exact moment when Hani had to bite down on Hyen's neck to inject spiritual power, and the memory hit them so hard they looked completely shell-shocked. Hani finally whipped around toward her friend and screamed that there was no way in hell she and Hyen were a thing, demanding to know who started that stupid rumor and ordering Hyen to say something right got him now. Han turned the color of a boiled lobster and stammered that honestly, it wasn't exactly a case, which only made Hani grab his collar and shout for him to spit it out. He barely got out the words that they didn't before his own friend burst through the door, hollering about the rumor. And another boy standing right there, deadass, asked if they were actually dating and punctuated it with an impressed damn. Some girl piped up that she liked Han and claimed she knew it all along, which sent Han into a trembling meltdown as he shouted at all of them to explain what they were even talking about right now. The yellow-haired girl just shrugged and said that honestly the two of them were always together, so she just figured they were dating. Then added that keeping it a secret was mean and they didn't have to be such gatekeeping weirdos about their love life. Han Yu went paid. Han mirrored her like a ghost. They forced a beat of dead silence. And then later, while Han Ji was waiting out in the hanging lot on her bike, she kept replaying her friend's voice in her head, saying that she and Han made a cute couple. She grounded her teeth and thought very loudly for the 100th time that they were not dating, and she still wanted to know which bottom feeder had lit the match on this bizarre rumor. That's when the weirdness dial cranked up to nightmare, because one of the school's glass windows exploded out of nowhere and a full-blown evil spirit came rocketing through it, cutting right across Hani's path in no time flat. Han came hauling ass out, holding the person who had been possessed earlier, and screamed at Hani to catch the spirit because it was running. And Hani shrieked back, asking if he was seriously going to keep spacing out, and told him to focus. Han just yelled that there was no time to lecture him and the thing was getting away. And I'm telling you, the coordination between these two was pure sweaty chaos. It was thinking to itself what the actual hell was up with this guy, because an exorcist was supposed to prioritize the host's safety, and instead, the lunatic just punched the host so hard he knocked his spirit right out of body with one hit. It kept running and admitted it had never seen an exorcist system like that before. But just when it thought it had a clean escape, it noticed something very wrong. Because Hani had already summoned her by using her spiritual energy and was lining up a shot. Announced she was officially pissed off enough as it was. Loaded a spirit to shut up and get lost. The arrow toured toward the spirit and it barely dodged by a hair, sweating buckets, and feeling a twisted mix of relief and fury as it taunted her that she thought she could catch it with those weak skills in her dreams and that she was 100 years too early to take it on. Hani muttered that it was close. Han asked how that was possible, and she admitted she might have gone a little overboard, which was a hell of an understatement. The evil spirit was still running and wheezing to itself that it almost died, and it was absolutely infuriated because after all that trouble to snag a host body, it nearly lost everything in a second. So, it needed a new host fast. Its gaze landed on Hoke walking alone on the road. And right before that, his friends had been asking if he really couldn't play baseball today since he'd gone home early yesterday too. Who answered that? Yeah, his mom told him to come straight home again today and apologize to them. And his friends shrugged it off with a see you later, but made him promise to play with them next time for sure. And who gave them a firm yeah, for sure. Once his back was turned, all three friends sighed about how they really needed Hawk today if they wanted to win another game. And one of them said he wished he was as good as Hook. While the third reason that it made sense because his mom hated him playing baseball. One kid asked seriously why that was. And someone else dropped the bomb that they apparently didn't know Hook's dad was that famous major league slugger Kim Woo, which made them all scream in shock. And then someone asked if that meant the one who just died, who was staring at his phone while the evil spirit hovered just above him, drooling over a fresh new body to slide into. And his mom's messages were stacked up like a digital interrogation. She'd hammered him with, "Where are you? Why are you taking so long? I told you to come straight home." And a final flat, "Are you in?" with no question mark, just doom. He was staring at that wall of text when a voice slithered into his ear, asking if he wanted his mom to disappear. And if that was truly his desire, the voice could make it happen. He spun and asked who was there in a panic, then tangled his own legs and went down hard. And the evil spirit materialized and purred that he didn't have to be afraid because it could take all that fear away. And it saw those eyes so full of pain. It cooed that he'd been through a lot and grabbed Yoke's neck, then started worming its way inside through one of his eyes, whispering that it was okay, and he just needed to relax and give his body over so it could save him from everything he feared. The thing warped its face into a woman's, calling him little boy, and who just kept begging it to save him over and over as the possession sank in deeper. The moment the evil spirit fully entered, it saw a shackle inside and found another evil spirit already chained up, bound completely, and the intruder knelt in sheer disbelief, asking what in the hell this was, because the kid was already possessed and it couldn't believe it hadn't noticed. From inside, the chained evil spirit started howling that the boy was his, that the body was his property, and the coughing half-skew squeeze invader was losing its as Hongi came drifting her bike into the alley with Hyan riding shotgun and yelling to go into that alley, The spirit inside felt them coming and cursed the little brats just as Han charged up a holy punch that came down like a freight train. And the evil spirit shrieked that it didn't want to die like this before it burst apart in spectacular fashion. The boy looked up totally disoriented, and a chain was still tethered from the other spirit to him, while Han exhaled that it was close, and he'd known the thing would jump into a new host the second it got a chance, then asked the kid if he was okay. The kid locked eyes with Han and said yes, thanking him for the save, and Hani marched over asking whether Han actually exercised it properly this time. Han scoffed and told her to back off because she saw it explode herself. And Hongi admitted she did, but still felt like there was some dark energy lingering around the area, which she made a show of scanning for. Han gave her a confused, asking dark energy, and the boy interrupted them both with an excuse me, staring at them like they'd fallen out of a comic book and pointing out they didn't look like a priest or a nun. So, how could they do that kind of thing? He smiled while asking. And a little later, the three of them were conged outside a stationery store where Hyuk got all lit up and asked what a healing agency was and whether it was true they'd exorcise evil spirits immediately for cash, even though they weren't priests. Han was demolishing yet another ice cream and laughing, telling him hopefully he'd never need it, but if anything happened, he should just give them a call. And the little boy practically levitated off his seat, asking really. With stars in his eyes, Han laid it on thick, promising they always delivered for their clients because that was the golden rule of the healing agency. And the boy smiled and said, okay. But then his phone erupted, and Hook's face collapsed into straight despair. He hopped off his chair and told Han he had to run because something just came up, then promised that if anything happened, he would definitely call them, and Han waved at him like an absolute idiot. As soon as the kid was out of earshot, Hani turned to Han and said flat out that he'd screwed up, and when Han looked confused, she explained that the dark energy was faint, so she couldn't be 100% sure, but she thought there was an evil spirit inside that kid. She said she didn't get how he was just walking around like everything was normal. And if he actually took Han up on that offer and came asking for an exorcism, the boss was going to murder him in cold blood. Unused froos. And later at whose house, there was a family photo of him with his father and mother from when he'd won a baseball championship. And his mother was pulling at the skin around his eyes a little too intimately while asking how he was feeling and if there had been any incident at school. Who answered that he was fine, and his mom praised the heavens and reminded him to take his medicine, shoving a black bottle of liquid at him and saying he had to drink it every day if he wanted to get better. He swallowed the stuff and then asked her if he still couldn't play baseball tomorrow because all his friends really want him to play. And ever since he started taking this medication, he hadn't had any seizures or fevers, so maybe just for one day. His mother got ready for work and answered with a cold no, stating that baseball was strictly forbidden until he was completely healed. And Hope just said, okay, like a deflated balloon. He later sat clutching his piggy bank and muttering to himself that this was the healing agency. And I'm telling you, he showed up at the office like a tiny Grim Reaper on a field trip. The boss, Isaac, was already mid-chaos feeding one of his kids while another was screaming bloody murder behind him. And he took one look at the boy and asked Han what a little kid was doing in his office and if Han even knew what this place was. The boy cracked open his piggy bank and announced that he'd heard they got rid of evil spirits, no questions asked, as long as they got paid. And Isaac laughed right in his face, saying he'd heard wrong and that a kid couldn't afford this place with pocket money. So he needed to get the hell out of his office because Isaac hated kids. Isaac delivered the speech while actively parenting tiny demons of his own. And then Hyuk pulled out the most aura-farming wad of cash from his bag and piggy bank and dropped it straight onto the desk like a mic. Isaac and every single one of his kids stared at the money with their jaws unhinged. And Isaac actually lifted his sunglasses to verify whether the universe was with him or not. While Hook asked if that was enough, Han, Ji, and Hein were gaping in confusion right along with him as the kid's request finally spilled out and Hack clenched his chest and said, please. He wanted them to kill his dad. So Hook's staring at Han Ji, completely lost while she keeps on talking about how an evil spirit twists up and takes over its own kid's body. She said her guess was Spoton, but she never figured it would be his own dad. What tripped her out even more was how Hyuko was just strolling around like nothing was wrong, because any normal kid would have hit the pavement drooling by now. Who tried to spit out that his dad was actually right there inside him and all, but Isaac slammed that table so hard I'm surprised it didn't split. That greedy told the kid straight up he'd walked into the wrong office. He announced they were rejecting the whole damn request, cold and final. Who practically screamed, demanding to know what the hell that even meant. Hadn't Isaac said he'd do any freaky exorcism as long as the money was green, and that Hyuk could call him anytime? The kid was shaking, pointing out Isaac's own damn words, like receipts. Han jumped in, telling Isaac this wasn't right at all. He argued the kid had cash and wasn't some broke stray, So tossing him out when he could snap and lose control any second was pure Isaac shot back that the kid could see, but they should help like he was about to flip on a dime before he just decked Han. Isaac screamed in Han's face, accusing him of bringing this kid straight to their doorstep. He hollered that exorcisms on children weren't for gutter-level exorcists like them. The Vatican has to handle that sacred. Then he grabbed Han's collar and told him if he didn't like it, he could haul his ass right out of the office. Turning to Hyuk, Isaac poured on some fake pity, saying he felt bad, but they just couldn't help. He told the kid to hold his mom's hand and sprint to the nearest church, where he'd recommend some priest whom he trusts, a priest who's cold as a corpse, but would treat him right. Isaac even pulled out his phone, babbling about how normally he'd charge for wasting his golden time. So Hook better get that exorcism immediately or lose his own golden time forever. Who started trembling like a leaf and spat out that if a church was an option, he would have gone ages ago. He shouted to forget everything, grabbed his bag, stuffed his money back, and bolted, screaming that the whole will exorcise anything from Moneyline was a giant stinking lie. He yelled that if these bastards wouldn't help, he was just going to leave. Han instantly hollered for him to wait, but Isaac shut him down. Isaac reminded Hyan they both knew damn well that exorcising an evil spirit from a kid without the Vatican's rubber stamp was illegal as hell. If they got caught, this office would be shuttered and both their asses would be jobless. And what about Han's debt to him and his sister's hospital bills? Isaac hammered it in, telling Han not to meddle and he couldn't handle. He said, "There are problems in the world we simply can't fix, so don't you forget it." Han just stared at him, said he'd remember, and then slammed that door so hard the frame rattled, leaving Isaac sputtering and confused. Hungy chimed in, reminding Isaac he better remember her goddamn foot. She said Han was definitely going to cause trouble again. No question. Meanwhile, Hyan was outside, frantically searching for Hyuk, scanning every inch of the place until he spotted him beside a baseball diamond. All the kids were screaming something about a home run while a diving catch got made. And there was who sitting off to the side, feeding a stray cat, just watching everyone have fun. Hyan came running up heaving and announced he'd finally found him, asking his name again and introducing himself as Han from the healing agency. Hook eyed him and said, "The agency guy, right, Hyan?" And then Hyan looked at the cat like it had 3 heads and asked what the deal was. Who just called the cat cute and explained he used to see it all the time back when they played baseball here. He used to feel sorry for it just wandering around lost, but lately looking at that cat felt like staring into a mirror. He couldn't stop feeding it now. Han asked what the hell he meant by like yourself. Hai stood up and threw a perfect pitching motion saying his dad was once a famous baseball player, so his whole dream was to be a great player just like him. Then his voice went flat, and he said his mom won't let him play baseball because she insists the more he plays the faster his dad's evil spirit will hijack his body. Beak laughed bitterly at how ridiculous that was. He's a man's son, so of course he's going to be more like him. The sick joke is the more he becomes like his dad, the more his life is in danger. That's why as a last resort, he came hunting for their agency because his mom said the church was absolutely off the table. He tried going by himself once, but they turned him away crying about needing a guardian's permission. His mom keeps saying she's hunting for a better way to send dad peacefully into the afterlife. So, he trusted her and survived half a year on nothing but tranquilizer. Now, the medicine barely works, and every night his father's ghost comes choking him, try to steal his body while he sleeps. Who looked at Hyan and pleaded, asking how much longer he has to live in this hell. He was trembling violently, shouting that it was just too much. What kind of father, even as an evil spirit, tortures his own kid like this? Hyan went completely silent, then muttered that even without evil spirits, he'd already seen plenty of parents in this world make their children suffer. Hyan's brain flashed straight back to Isaac's words about leaving child exorcisms to the Vatican and not meddling in things he can't handle. But right then, he told Hook he'd do it. He'd exorcise that bastard dad, who asked if he meant it, and Han laid down the terms. It sure as wasn't free. It was premium healing agency exorcism rates, and everyone had to keep it secret. Who immediately said he had plenty of money and not to worry. Han added that who better be ready to see his dad's evil spirit begging for its life. Who admitted he hadn't thought that far ahead when suddenly a crow started cawing its lungs out as a whole murder of them took off right above them. Han demanded to know why there were so many damn crows, and then thought that a talking crow felt exactly like that freaky chicken head from before. That crow spat some ancient-sounding crap about a child who doesn't listen to his parents deserving severe punishment, calling it a penalty for an unfilial child. Behind it, a talisman sizzled into flames, and a pill clutched in the crow's beak snapped apart, igniting a fire right on top of Hyuk as he started getting possessed. Hung instantly dropped his piggy bank, and Han rushed at him, screaming about what the actual hell that crow was. Somewhere else, Hook's mother was shrieking, demanding to know what that woman did to who, and accusing her of using some twisted magic, breaking the promise not to touch him. The girl just told her to stop yelling, explaining she'd only dealt a small punishment because he was planning to kill his father, and dealing with the nuisance all at once worked out perfectly. She held up a briefcase and told Hu's mom that if she'd just explained it as saving Dad, the kid definitely would have listened. Or maybe it's just natural for a parent to keep their own sins from their child. Then she tossed the briefcase at the mom's feet and said those were the tranquilizers for a full month. If dosed now, he'd be fine. She demanded double the usual fee as punishment for failing to raise the kid properly. The mom snatched up those bottles along with the briefcase, agreeing, then begged to see her son for just a moment. The lady gave a smug, "Of course," and soon the mom was in a car, flying down the road, clutching the tranquilizer and sobbing that her husband would return. She replayed a memory of her husband's body, kept alive on some medical device, and the lady asking how it felt to hear her husband's heartbeat. After so long, the mom had thought, "My dear husband, Kim Woo, he really?" And the lady promised it wouldn't be long now. Once his body was fully recovered, they'd yank his soul from the child and transfer it. Now, as rain or tears stred down her face while driving, she kept telling herself that her husband would come back. They'd be a happy family again, and surely Hyuk would be happy too. In the Kong, though, something utterly warped was happening. The cat was locked on hook while Han faced off with the kid, fully possessed by his own father. Han was struggling hard, realizing the kid's body had been completely snatched, and the evil spirit wasn't even registering Hyuk anymore. It kept screaming that this body was its own and nobody would ever take it away. Clawing at its chest, Han saw the thing had become nothing but a monster, driven solely by the hunger to own that flesh. Hyan roared, demanding to know if Hook still thought there was a problem with exorcising his dad. The monster turned and shrieked that Hook was gone, reaching out with a strangle-ready grip and bellowing that this body belonged to it alone. Han narrowed his eyes, muttered a mocking, "Only to you, huh?" And then from deep inside came Hyuk's voice calling out. Hyan declared it wasn't from his own damn perspective anymore. He launched some kind of attack and then drove a fist straight into the evil spirit's face, shouting that Hoke better remember this moment forever. He screamed that everything happening today was a secret just between the two of them. Dude, now picture this past. Kim Woo was just annihilating pitch after pitch, sending home runs into orbit like a goddamn machine. And the whole stadium was convinced he was the scariest man alive. He even did that cheesy heart sign with his hands while his name got carved into every history book you can think of. Little Ha was sitting there with his mom absolutely glowing, hollering for his dad like it was the best day ever. But deep down, his father had already become his number. One enemy, Han, didn't waste a single second and just cold-coked Hook right in the gut, screaming at him to drive the evil spirit straight out of his mouth. Hyuk's body heaved, and that nasty spirit came flying out in a mess of vomit. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the creepy hag, who'd been torturing Hyuk's mom, got word from one of her underlings that the link had been completely destroyed. She was standing right beside Kimu's actual corpse, totally baffled, and snapped at them, asking if all those games had rotted their damn brain. She shot some talisman energy toward a crow just to see what was happening. And then her mind immediately went to that bastard kid. The little girl with her chimed in saying it was exactly like when a healing agency jumped them. No fancy ritual, no warning, just the host connection severed and the spirit booted out. The hag chewed on that and muttered about the healing agents, wondering who the hell they were and why they always got in the way. The girl straight up asked what they were supposed to do since the evil spirit inside Kim was about to be wiped out. The boss lady just kept walking forward, absolutely unbothered, and said it didn't matter. The plan was moving ahead, so they needed to get ready. She declared they'd just forget about Kim Woo and go grab Hook and his precious mom right then. But the boy standing there piped up, saying he was coming along because he had unfinished business with that damn brat from the healing agency, who was standing right next to what was left of his dad's spirit. And that evil thing started begging him to save it, insisting his father still had things left undone. Like any innocent kid who asked if that was really his dad, the spirit wed that it didn't want to die like that and pleaded for just a little more time, but Han roared him not to listen to a single word. Hyan snatched that animal head in one hand, ready to smash it, while the dad voice screamed for Hu to help, who immediately told Hyan to wait because that voice genuinely sounded like his father. Hyan fired back that of course it was still his dad's soul, but right now it was just a husk with no will, trying to seduce him so it could steal his body. He was a split second from crushing the head when Hook's mother stormed in from behind and shrieked for everything to stop right there. Han froze, completely thrown off, wondering who the hell that was. And then it clicked. It was Hook's mom throwing herself between him and the spirit. Hugh cried out for his mom, and she instantly turned on Hyan, demanding to know who he was and what he'd done her son, who jumped in and swore Hyan hadn't done anything wrong, that he was only trying to help. He insisted Hyan had pulled the evil spirit out of his body, and his mother just stared at the scene in front of her. The kid shouted that he was fine now, that he didn't need medicine anymore, and that he could play baseball whenever he wanted, all thanks to Han. But then his mother dropped a bombshell that made your blood run cold. She told him no. They could just ask those people to put his dad's evil spirit back in. It would cost more, but it was fine. Who, stunned, asked what the hell she was talking about, and she instantly slapped him across the face, sobbing and begging him to just listen for once. She wailed about telling him to wait a little longer, asking if she did all this for herself and why he couldn't understand how she felt. Han intercepted her hand before she could strike again and yelled that it was enough, asking if she couldn't see Hyuk trembling like a terrified animal. The kid was crying and apologizing over and over, saying he was sorry, Mom. From a distance, a crow watched the entire meltdown, and inside it was that boss lady's voice calling the whole thing ridiculous. A joke born from trying to defy the laws of nature. The crow with a bead in its beak shot into the sky, and suddenly an endless swarm of them materialized, swirling into a black vortex. Hang looked up, muttered about a flock of crows, and was completely confused while Hyuk and LT, Unk and GT's mother recognized them immediately and freaked out. Those birds dove like living missiles straight at the three of them, and Hyan sped over them both, taking the full brunt. He was getting shredded, each crow hitting him like a bullet, his body riddled with cuts and bruises. Exhausted and bleeding, Hyan choked out a question about what the hell was with all these crows. That's when the boss lady emerged from the chaos, scooped up Hook, and Hook's mother sprinted over, screaming about what she thought she was doing. She frantically reminded the hag she'd already paid for the entire month and offered to pay even more if this was about the exorcism Hyuk asked for. The boss lady cut her off, saying to forget the money because they'd already been paid more than enough, and what they really wanted now were the souls of both her and her son. She pointed a finger at Hyuk's mother and said the plan got a little messy thanks to that guy's interference, but it didn't really matter. Hyuk's mother barely got out of question before the lady pressed a finger to her forehead, and she immediately went drowsy and collapsed unconscious. Han lunged at them, roaring about who the hell she was, and to get the hell away from them, but the boss lady just stuffed Hyuk and his mom into the van and threw open the door. Before Han could even touch her, her psycho lapdog boy appeared right in front of him, holding Han's snake and booting him square in the chest. He cackled about how they'd finally met and pinned Hyan to the ground, grinding his knee into him while bragging he was going to have so much fun. Han could barely breathe under the pressure as the freak hissed that he'd been waiting a long time to see him again. Han wheezed out that he had no idea what he was talking about, insisted he didn't even know him, and told him to move his ass out of the way. The boy just slapped his hand on Han's forehead and sneered, asking if he really didn't remember, reminding him he'd said he would send him to hell. Him, his sister, and his girlfriend. In that instant, Hyan's brain clicked, and he recognized that voice. It was that bastard from the past. The boss lady yelled at the boy to wrap it up fast because they had work to do too, and she stared at that psychopath, grinning like a maniac, telling him to get lost and stop bothering her. The van peeled out at full throttle, and Han watched it go, realizing those bastards were the culprits who'd planted the evil spirit in Hook this whole time. He knew he had to chase them immediately, because if he was even a second late, he couldn't guess what would happen to those two. But first, he had to deal with the freak in front of him. He looked up at the boy who was just staring and smiling like a soulless doll. And Hyan's face beat with sweat as he realized the guy's strength was absolutely insane. He tried to make a move, but nothing worked. His body was locked down. Rescue came out of nowhere when Father Kang's assistant flew in and drop-kicked the boy straight in the face, sending him crashing to the floor. The assistant landed and immediately asked Han if he was okay, calling him a healing agency member. Hyan, shocked, saw the assistant priest and then spotted Han Ji behind him on her bike. Father Kong screamed at Hyan to leave this mess to them and just save the kid. Han Ji locked eyes with him, and Han asked how the hell they even found this place. She shot back that the boss tipped off Father Kong, just in case Han decided to hit that kid again, but it looked like he'd gotten dragged into something way more complicated. She tossed the helmet at him, and when he just stood there frozen, she demanded to know why he wasn't moving, asking if he didn't want to save that piggy bank kid. Right then, the boy on the ground lunged up in front of the assistant priest, snarling that Hyan was his prey and released a wave of vile spiritual energy from his body. He laughed like a total maniac and shouted that priest or not, anyone who got his way would die. The assistant looked at him and asked Father Kong what the hell he was, while Kong powered up his own energy and warned that this one had completely mastered the evil spirit and turned it into his own power. The assistant gulped and asked if it was really that bad this time, and Kong flat out said their lives might actually be on the line. Meanwhile, Han E and Hyan were ripping through the streets, and Han spotted the white van up ahead and screamed at her. She swerved the bike in that direction, and Hyen stood up on the back seat, balancing like a lunatic, yelling at her to get closer. Han Ji whipped her head around and shrieked that he was crazy and what he was doing was dangerous. He grabbed her waist, and she asked how much he was getting paid to pull this stunt. Hyen just ripped off his helmet and shouted that he didn't need that pocket change anymore, then launched himself from the bike straight onto the van's hood. Hani screamed his name, but he landed hard, staring right through the windshield into the soul of that boss lady who completely panicked and lost control for a second, shrieking about what this crazy guy was doing. Han glared and yelled that now that he knew the truth, there was no way in hell he was backing down. He told Hani that Hyuk and LT, Unk and GT, S mom, currently being tormented by those bastards' evil spirit, was the top priority. Right next to them, a massive Aryan billboard flashed, "Run your way." Hani caught the absurdity and hollered if he was serious. Han grinned and said that's exactly why he was going to smash these bastards into pieces to get a reward big enough to put up a giant billboard ad. Uni then absolutely lost her screaming at Hyen that no amount of cash was worth this insanity, and that reckless idiot was actively begging for a body bag. Meanwhile, my boy Hyen was still teetering on the van's head like a cracked-out gymnast, peering inside and calmly announcing he was asking nicely once. Then he rammed his fist straight through the windshield, glass exploding everywhere, and bellowed for them to release Hyuk's family, while the sweating lady driver inside somehow wrestled the wheel and Hani had to swerve hard to prevent another pileup. Hani was glued to their bumper when the lady yanked out a talisman and shrieked, demanding to know who the hell he thought he was to interfere when they'd already called dibs and he should piss off. She hurled that foul thing out the window, and it activated into a whole swarm of crows whose bodies were literally cloaked in blazing flames. Hyen cursed that it was goddamn crows again, like they were his personal nemesis. Completely caught off guard, and right then he realized if he ate pavement now, he'd never catch them. The burning birds smashed him off the hood. Plans went straight to hell, and he was about to become roadkill while he stared at the escaping van and ground his teeth in raw fury. Han Ji hollered that he was such an exhausting goddamn handful, snapped her fingers, and triggered her spiritual power. So Han got caught inside the shimmering bubble while random people on the street froze and gaped. She screamed at him, asking if he maybe had a stash of extra lives or something because she couldn't hold it long and he needed to get his ass behind her fast. Of course, Han, still nagging like a malfunctioning audio loop, told her to drop the lecture and just float his stubborn self right next to the van. One more time, and Han Ji shrieked in disbelief, asking what the actual hell he meant by again. Inside the van, the lady driver had a mini brain melt, realizing the screeching girl was an exorcist as well. But before she could process a single thought, Han's voice came slicing through the window, calling her the Crow Lady. He was just hovering there in Hani's spiritual hamster ball like some unholy guardian maniac, declaring the healing agency always keeps their promises to clients. And Hyuk's exorcism wasn't finished. He straight up drop-kicked through the door, annihilated the window, and planted his foot directly onto that lady's face while roaring at her to stop interfering with his work and get the hell out. The van instantly fishtailed into madness with both Hyen and the lady inside the cabin, now brawling and absolutely nobody touching the wheel. From behind, Han Ji called him stubborn, but then she glanced forward and a sucker punch of pure horror hit her because the van was barreling straight toward a Vatican-controlled restricted zone. She tried to process the catastrophic storm they'd be in if the Vatican discovered they'd been involved in a child exorcism. But before that thought even finished, the van had launched off a ramp and pulverized the gate. Hani mentally shrieked that the entire healing agency was finished while the van flipped and cratered, and she ditched her bike, sprinting over and screaming Hyen's name. Han crawled out of the mangled wreckage alongside Hu and his mother, who both were sure they died. And Hani frantically yelled that if he was still breathing, they needed to move and escape immediately. Han just blinked at her with sheer confusion, wondering why she was in such a manic rush when these two were clearly busted up until Hani grabbed Hook and his mom and explained very loudly about the Vatican zone. She spelled it out. If the Vatican found out he'd laid a finger on that kid, their agency was beyond doomed. And she was sensing something profoundly wrong, too. Her eyes locked onto two unconscious priests nearby as she stressed that the priest in charge of this area wouldn't just lose to some ordinary evil spirit. She smacked Hyuk and his mother onto bikes, yelling they'd save the client and needed to leave because this place was dangerous in about 5 different flavors. And Han just replied with a shocked agreement. That's when the creepy little gang girl materialized beside them and commented that she had good instincts. And in the very next instant, Hani was trusted up by chains erupting from evil spirits, dangling in the air while she spat that she knew some other bastard was lurking behind them. Han sprinted toward her, bellowing in confusion and demanding to know where that thing came from. His brain racing to the horrific realization that the evil spirit was being remotely controlled. One of the unconscious priests jolted awake right next to Han, casually agreed with the word correct, and drove a punch directly into his chest that ejected every particle of breath from his body. Han sailed backward like a discarded doll and smashed into the same van he just crawled out of, some rogue rod impaling him through the chest near his shoulder. Blood immediately, burbling from his mouth and leaking from the wound, while Hani screamed his name in absolute terror. The driving lady extracted herself from the crashed van, somehow still breathing, and punched its metal shell, wailing that the whole plan was ruined and that Tinkin bastard couldn't even handle one brat. Then the little girl's voice came from above, holding Hawk, the evil spirit, and Hawk and LT, Unk and GT, his mother, all at once with chains sprouting from her body, and she told her sister to calm down because they'd already handled the nuisances. The lady driver just looked stunned while the little girl, still fiddling with her Nintendo, casually confirmed she'd gathered all the materials, so there wasn't a problem. Then yanked off her hoodie and announced she'd go fetch that Tinkin guy. Now cut to the actual fight where Father Kong and his assistants were getting mangled. The assistants all busted and coughing up blood. While Tinkin told the old fart, he pushed him surprisingly far, and it wasn't half bad. The assistant wheezed an apology. Kong cursed that he wished he were 10 years younger. And then Tinkin slowly rubbed his fingers across his face, released his energy, and said playtime was over since he was a burst of energy coiled around his fists as he charged straight at Father Kong. But before any strike could connect, a portal tore open right in front of Kong, and a chain shot out, lashing around Tin Can's neck. Tin was baffled, and Father Kong just stood there speechless, watching the chain violently yank Tin Can through the portal before it slammed shut, leaving the old man muttering about a gate. Tin Can appeared on the far side where the little girl had summoned him, slamming into the floor so violently it triggered a ludicrous seismic blast. The boss lady finally acknowledged his arrival, telling him that if he kept this up, they couldn't work together. And Tin Can apologized, but whined about those priest bastards interfering and the Vatican dogs catching their scent. The boss lady snapped that even is great at excuses, but this actually worked out thanks to his flashy entrance. Then she leered at the dug-up.